Told my BF my dog comes first after he let friends take him without asking, despite me cleaning daily and keeping the dog away for his allergies. The moment strangers appeared at the front door holding a leash and claiming they were there to take my dog, the foundation of my relationship crumbled. It was a Saturday afternoon, and the sight of two unfamiliar men standing on my porch, casually mentioning they were sent to pick up my 6-year-old golden retriever, Max, sent a jolt through me. My boyfriend, Ethan, had orchestrated this behind my back, and the betrayal hit like a physical blow. Max was more than a pet, he was my constant companion, my responsibility, and a non-negotiable part of my life. The audacity of Ethan thinking he could make this decision without me was the beginning of the end. Ethan and I had been together for 9 months when we decided to move in together. From the very first date, he knew about Max. I made it clear that my dog was part of the package, 6 years old, impeccably trained, never barking or chewing furniture, and always kept clean. Max had been with me through college, a bad breakup, and countless late-night study sessions. Ethan seemed fine with it at first, even petting Max during visits to my old apartment. When we found a 2-story rental house, I thought it was perfect. Plenty of space for us and a lower level where Max could stay to minimize Ethan's allergies. I spent weeks researching air purifiers, setting up a cleaning schedule, and ensuring Max's hair wouldn't be an issue. Ethan nodded along, saying he appreciated the effort. Things started to shift a month after we settled in. Ethan began making comments about Max's presence. He'd sigh when he saw dog hair on the couch, even though I vacuumed daily. He'd mention how his allergies were acting up, despite the air purifiers humming in every room. Then came the first suggestion to rehome Max. It was casual, slipped into a conversation about future plans, but it stopped me cold. He said it might be easier for us if Max lived somewhere else, somewhere he could have more space. I reminded him that Max was my family, that Ethan knew this when we moved in, and that I'd already done everything to accommodate his allergies. He dropped it that day, but the seed was planted, and his attitude toward Max grew colder. The tension around Max grew steadily over the next few weeks. Ethan's comments became more frequent and pointed. He'd walk into the living room, see Max curled up on his bed in the corner, and mutter about how the house never felt clean enough. I'd spent hours researching pet dander solutions, investing in a high-end vacuum, lint rollers, and hypoallergenic bedding. Every morning, I'd brush Max outside, sweep the floors, and run the air purifiers on high. The lower level, where Max spent most of his time, was practically a dog sanctuary, his water bowl, toys, and bed neatly arranged. I kept the upstairs off-limits to Max, even though he'd always slept in my room before Ethan moved in. Ethan's allergies were mild, according to him, but I took no chances. Still, he'd complain about itchy eyes or a stuffy nose, blaming Max without evidence. I started to notice he avoided the lower level entirely, as if Max's existence was an inconvenience he couldn't tolerate. When I brought up how much effort I was putting in, he'd shrug and say he just wanted a normal, living situation. The word rehome came up again, this time with more insistence. He framed it as a practical solution, claiming Max would be happier with a family that had a big yard. I shut it down, explaining Max was happy here, with me, where he'd always been. Ethan's face tightened, but he didn't push further that day. The situation escalated when Ethan started inviting friends over without warning. These were his buddies from work, guys I'd met once or twice but didn't know well. They'd show up on weekends, filling the living room with loud conversations and takeout containers. Max stayed downstairs, as always, but Ethan's friends would sometimes wander down there, curious about the dog Ethan complained about. I overheard one of them say Max seemed chill, and didn't get why Ethan made a big deal out of it. I'd smiled politely but felt a growing unease. Ethan was painting a picture of Max as a problem, and his friends were starting to echo his complaints. One evening, after his friends left, Ethan sat me down and said he felt like he was suffering in the house. He claimed his allergies were worse than ever, though he never showed symptoms beyond occasional sneezing. He said it wasn't fair that he had to live with a dog he didn't sign up for. I reminded him, again, that he knew about Max from day one, that he chose to move in, and that I'd bend over backward to make it work. He didn't argue but gave me a look that said he wasn't letting this go. I went to bed that night with a knot in my stomach, sensing something was coming. Max, oblivious, slept soundly by my side, his steady breathing the only thing keeping me calm. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning when I decided to step out for a quick coffee with a friend. I'd been feeling suffocated by Ethan's passive-aggressive comments and needed a break from the house. Max was settled downstairs with fresh water and his favorite chew toy, and I told Ethan I'd be back in an hour. He was on the couch, scrolling through his phone, and gave a vague nod without looking up. I didn't think much of it at the time, assuming he'd stay put like he usually did on weekends. The coffee shop was only 10 minutes away, and the meetup was uneventful, just a chance to vent about work and clear my head. But when I pulled back into the driveway 40 minutes later, something felt off. There was an unfamiliar car parked on the street, and as I approached the front door, I saw two guys I vaguely recognized as Ethan's coworkers standing on the porch. One of them was holding a leash, and they were chatting casually, like they were waiting for something routine. When I asked what they were doing, the taller one said they were there to pick up Max and take him to a better home. My heart stopped. They said Ethan had arranged it, that he told them it was all set. I felt the blood drain from my face, my keys still clutched in my hand. Without a word, I told them to leave, my voice sharper than I intended. They looked confused but didn't argue, shuffling back to their car as I pushed past the door. Inside, Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in front of him, looking startled when I walked in. The house was quiet, Max still downstairs, unaware of what had almost happened. I asked Ethan what he thought he was doing, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. He stammered, clearly not expecting me back so soon, and said he didn't think it would be a big deal. He claimed he was trying to fix things for us, that he just wanted his space back, and that he thought rehoming Max would make us both happier. His words felt like a script he'd rehearsed, each one digging the knife deeper. I stood there, staring at the man I'd shared a home with, and realized he didn't see Max as part of my life. He saw him as an obstacle. I told him, without hesitation, that Max came before him, that Max was my family, and that he'd crossed a line there was no coming back from. I said he needed to pack his things and get out. His face fell, but he didn't argue, didn't try to defend himself. He just sat there, silent, as I turned and went downstairs to check on Max. My dog was lying on his bed, tail wagging when he saw me, completely oblivious to the chaos. I sat with him for a few minutes, stroking his fur, trying to steady my breathing. Ethan's betrayal wasn't just against me. It was against the one thing I'd made clear was non-negotiable from the start. Ethan didn't leave immediately. He spent the next hour moving through the house, gathering his belongings in a daze. I stayed downstairs with Max, keeping the door to the lower level closed, not wanting to see Ethan's face or hear any excuses. The sound of drawers opening and closing upstairs, the rustle of bags being packed, filtered through the house like background noise. I focused on Max, brushing his fur, checking his water bowl, anything to keep my hands busy while my mind raced. Ethan had planned to give my dog away without so much as a conversation, as if Max was a piece of furniture he could discard. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in the assumption that he could make that choice for me, that he could override something so fundamental to who I was. I kept replaying the moment I saw his friends at the door, their casual attitude, the leash in their hands. Ethan must have told them it was no big deal, that I'd be fine with it. The thought made my stomach churn. Eventually, I heard the front door open and close, the sound of Ethan's car starting, then fading down the street. I didn't go upstairs to check if he'd taken everything. I didn't care. All that mattered was that Max was still here, safe, his head resting on my knee as I sat on the floor. The days that followed were quiet but not peaceful. Ethan sent a message that night, a long paragraph about how I'd overreacted, how he was just trying to make our life better, how he didn't mean to hurt me. I read it once, felt a flicker of anger, and blocked his number. There was nothing he could say to undo what he'd done. The house felt different without him, emptier, but also lighter. I moved Max's bed back upstairs, letting him sleep in my room again, something I hadn't realized I'd missed until his familiar weight settled at the foot of the bed. I kept up my cleaning routine, vacuuming daily, running the air purifiers, but it wasn't for Ethan anymore. It was for me and Max, for the life we'd built together long before Ethan came along. I started noticing small things Ethan had left behind, a hoodie in the laundry, a coffee mug on the counter, but I tossed them without hesitation. Max was my priority, always had been, and I slept better knowing no one in the house saw him as disposable. Looking back, I don't regret telling Ethan to leave. Max is still here, his tail wagging every morning, his steady presence a reminder that some bonds are worth more than compromises that ask you to give up who you are.